Good morning. I am so happy to be with you today. This is the Reverend Vance P. Ross, the senior pastor of Central United Methodist Church. And I love when you introduce in the worship services that are now online. I love how you say that. Could you please say what you say when you're inviting people to worship online?
Well, I'm saying, good morning, Pastor Vance P. Ross here, senior pastor of Central United Methodist Church, the church of the heart of the city with the city at heart.
That's
I'm
right.
so very glad to be with you. Yeah, that's
I
it.
love that every time.
Thank you.
Okay. Now you are located right in the heart of the city, just down below
Yes,
the stadium in a
right.
neighborhood that's just down the street from Morehouse Medical School, where I'm in why I'm doing this project, the Satcher Health Leadership Institute project.
Indeed.
And I appreciate you taking some time with me today, sir. I have you're married to one of my dear friends for over 30 years. I've known her in the United Methodist Church. The Reverend Dr. Bridget D. Young Ross.
Yeah.
And you all make an extraordinary couple, powerhouse couple, as we
Oh,
say.
thank you. Thank you. That's
You-
kind to say.
Well, you have
I get to
provided,
hang out with her.
you do, and you are complement one another in some beautiful ways, and you have given a lot of leadership in our denomination that's been expansive globally, really. So I don't know if you wish to say anything about the different roles you've taken over
I could say about a couple. I
Okay.
served as a member of the staff of the General Board of Discipleship. I was the director level at a couple of points. And I've also served as an associate general secretary, and I was their first ever deputy general secretary. Also, while I was there, I was the founder and convener of the Convocation for Pastors of Black Churches. And I did that for 22 years. And so I just relinquished that to some younger pastors to do some work with that. So that's been a whole lot of my journey. Discipleship, local church, discipleship again, local church, discipleship again. That's sort of how I've done it. I think the local church is the locus, though our denomination says that the annual conference is the focal and center point. I think you don't have an annual conference without local churches,
Right.
without people on the ground doing other hands-on sort of thing, chaplaincies, etc. I think it's vitally important to understand that we don't exist as a connection without these connect points. And the feature connection point is the local church. So I've been thrilled to be able to get back, and God has blessed me that way.
Wonderful. Now, the phrase just dropped in my head, so I'm going to go with it as a question. Are we yet alive?
We are alive, yes, at some points. At some points, we're simply existing. But at some points, we are alive, and there's some thriving. There's some great possibility. One of the crucial things here is to know or have a faith that believes that people, their lives, their souls, their health in total are all important, that there are not throwaway people. When you believe that, then you don't really think there are throwaway churches. You get a real sense that there's overcoming and possibility in any and every place where you go where there are people. The only place there are not be people or be local churches or ministry. It's where there are no people. And this sense that we operate as followers of Jesus the Christ of Nazareth becomes vitally important. Nazareth is not on the scene in any sort of way in the Old Testament. In the Hebrew Bible, it's not a blip on the screen. It only becomes a blip because Jesus the Christ is reared there. It is out of this dark-skinned man who was born of a virgin, raised in a ghetto, raised under an empire. That is who has fomented a religion of billions. When you begin there, you see, okay, everything and everybody has a sense of importance under God. There are no throwaway people. And as we know that, in those places where there's faith there, not just intellectual assent, not this misappropriation of belief, when there is a faith there, then there's always possibility for being vital. We are not vital and alive where we don't have that faith. where we don't believe every soul that breathes is important and priority to God. And particularly, as I follow Jesus of Nazareth, particularly the dispossessed, what Thurman calls the disinherited, they are of particular and peculiar importance unto God. He takes Abram, who was nothing, nobody, and makes a people and fashions a people and a faith and a religion. And that's where we become vital. We can have 1,000 people and not be vital.
Mm-hmm.
Numbers are not the source of vitality. The source of vitality is the Spirit of God breathed into souls that have faith that they are and those around them are important.
Right. Breathing has been a theme throughout all of these interviews. I guess because we're all conscious of this, the challenges and the shifting that's occurring because of this pandemic and which is why we're doing this project for faith-based messaging. How you keep hope alive, how you keep lifting up what's true and real and what's solid and good. And, so breathing has been a theme. And what does it mean to breathe in the heart of a city right now, especially this particular city?
Oh, it means to breathe good air right now and remind you of all the smog you've been breathing. As I go back and forth to the campus where we are, one of the things that's happened, I just got a note this morning, there are between 8 and 10 people on the campus now. We're closed, but they are there. They are homeless, hungry. They're fundamentally in ill health, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Something is not connecting mostly for most of the folk there. I can't say for everybody, but for most of the people there. Well, we've been kind of breathing in the culture like they don't exist.
Right.
And now we're as we wrestle with the pandemic, we also wrestle with what is it in my local setting? What is it we do? How do we help these people? We've talked with some of them about places to go. Well, they argue, well, I don't want to go someplace where I've got to be in at 6 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. Some others don't want to go someplace where they can't smoke, where they're not free. Mm-hmm. So what does it mean now? I don't have an answer for it. What does it mean for them to breathe freely?
Right.
And how do we help them to breathe freely? This pandemic has caused us, Delhi in India, Los Angeles, people are seeing the sky in ways they haven't seen it before. It's clearing some things up. So breathing right now, what's getting clear? And what's getting clear for us in life of the world, for me in the life of the church, I hope to help our people with this, is that we're blessed with a lot of air that others don't have. Now, how do we share our air with them, our resources, our spaces? What is it we have to do? We have a building that's in real disrepair, parsonage in our place. What are we going to do to fix that? And then how is that going to help some people breathe? Will it be the homeless, our unhoused neighbors? Will we do something for youth? Will we do something for young adults? We're not sure yet. But this is giving more clarity around the air that we're breathing and how we share that air with others. If you follow.
And how we're caring for the people where in a way that is validating and sees and honors and ministers respect in an inclusive kind of way.
Absolutely.
You're making me remember. Did you ever know Reverend Cal Houston years ago?
Calvin Houston. Oh yes, Calvin Houston was at ITC. He was my one of my instructors. Yes, I hadn't heard his name in years.
I know. I've been trying to find stuff about him.
Care.
Okay, well, I got to do some work with him when I was in seminary for contextual ed. And anyway, he took me all over the city. And one of the conversations I remember him having was with Ginger Caney. You probably remember Ginger Caney. And I'll never forget listening to them talk. What they were emphasizing was this whole thing about freedom and rights and the invisibility of particularly the people who are without homes living in our city. And they just kept saying, you know, we've got to get to where we realize that every body has a right to take up the space that that body is in.
Mm.
And that's got to be fundamental for any kind of partnership, any kind of collaborative engagement, any kind of real work that matters.
Mm-hmm.
So that's coming to me as I'm listening to you talk about being, how do you say it again? The church with the heart in the heart of the city.
Church with the heart of the city. The church in the heart of the city with the city at heart.
Okay.
And as you raised that, this right, last week, I was walking in the neighborhood and went up a hill, turned a corner where there used to be a school. And I was talking with my prayer partner on the phone, and a large SUV police car rolls up beside me. Windows are tinted, I can't see in. I look, am I about to have a problem?
Yeah.
I just looked. And do I raise my hands? Do I walk over, see what's happening? And I was in a black Princeton University sweatsuit.
Mm-hmm.
And it occurred to me right then, I may die now.
Oh, God.
Now, I had no encounter with the officer, whoever was in the car. They may have been there to take a nap. They may have decided to pull over on the side of the road to write out a report.
Mm-hmm.
It may be that they were tired and want to make a phone call. I don't know. But it became clear to me for a second that this may be the end of my life. Again, I had no encounter.
Right.
Now, I went on talking with my prayer partner. I did not even tell him that I had this moment. Mm-hmm. I came home. I didn't tell my wife I had this moment. I was on a call with some pastors and some people from the upper room. We were talking about Sabbath and getting away and taking time to breathe and what's going on good. And it occurred to me as they were all talking about what was going on good, that I had this moment that I hadn't shared, and I behaved as if it was normal. Now, the notion that I have a right to exist in my body, in the state where I am, is fundamentally attacked by a system, a global system of white supremacy racism that I felt in that moment because I am a tall, dark-skinned, deep-voiced Black man taking a walk. I remember the young man who's killed in Brunswick, Ahmaud Arbery. It occurs to me that every day, if I have an encounter with certain people, I have a sense that for them, I'm not human. Hear me. Not that I'm not human for them.
Right.
For them, I'm a thing, I'm an object, I'm a monster, I'm a beast, because they've created a mythology around pigment or the lack thereof. And so this sense that Dr. Houston and you had a discussion about, of being free and having the right to live in your body, wherever your body is while important, outside of the norm. And one of the challenges for us, and I heard you in a meeting, came up to my wife in a meeting, you said, we have to be able to deconstruct whiteness.
Right.
It becomes really crucial to people being able to have the dignity, the nobility and right of living in their own bodies. I'm remembering the anxiety that I felt for that moment, but didn't express it. Because this is normal.
Normal.
Yeah.
In an abnormal
That's
take
right.
on what's real. Yeah.
Absolutely.
There are no words really.
Yeah.
It's
well,
too many grief Okay,
Yeah.
what did you write?
I wrote just a very brief thing on Facebook. Said, I took a walk this morning, and a police car came up. I have not been to jail.
Right.
I did not go into a construction site. I'm not running from anyone. I took a walk this morning, and a police car came up beside me, and I thought I may die today. And I wrote, "This is not normal." And they're, concerned by a lot of folk, but some I think miss whoever the officer was, male, female, black, white, brown, or yellow. They didn't say anything to me.
Right.
Their showing up reminded me that they could find me a threat to them.
Right.
And all I'm doing is walking. And the abnormality is what the overculture places in the context of one's life. I had to teach my children, but particularly my son, when you're driving a car, your hands are at 10 and 2. Cop stops you. You stop. You say, "Officer, how can I help you?" You speak pleasantly. You don't lose your voice. You don't lose your cool. You walk the officer through whatever they're asking for. The officer asks, "Do you have a weapon?" "I do not have a weapon, officer." Officer asks for registration. "Officer, I would be glad to, but it is in the glove compartment. May I reach for it?" When they say "may reach for it," you reach, but you don't just reach. You reach and say, "I'm reaching for my registration as you allow." You pull a registration out, you hand it to him. He asks for your own license. "My license is in my pocket. May I reach for it?" Yeah. "I'm reaching for my license, sir." Pull the license out, then you hand him the license, then you wait. That's not normal.
No.
But it's what I've had to live with my son and my daughters, particularly my son, day in and day out. And it becomes crucial to know and note how that impacts health.
Yes.
The sense of anxiety that's in my body then, I'm glad I was walking so I can walk that adrenaline out.
Exactly.
But over and over that happens. And so we find people, we talk about people having problems with health and obesity. Well,
and hypertension.
Hypertension, all that. Well, the only drug you can deal with and not go to jail is food.
Good point.
Yeah. And so people, many of us are eating ourselves to death in response to these anxieties, these stresses, these traumas that are daily. I was working in the agency and was in a debate with colleagues relative to budget. And I was mostly being quiet because I knew my size. Well, I found folk being aggressive and assertive with me because I assumed I could be assertive and aggressive with them. And when I came back as assertive as they were, my boss on the way out reminded me, "Well, you're a big black man with a deep voice." And so everything there was to press me down.
Yeah.
Everything was to press me down. And she and others would act like that's not what happened. That is precisely what happened.
That's what happened. Yeah. And it happens every day.
Every day.
Policing
Every day.
happens by many, not just the police. And that's what the white supremacy institutions of white supremacy have set up the mythologies around.
That's right.
I remember that you have stood up and said, or I've seen you post about it, something about how white supremacy and slavery are the original sin of this nation. And this is what our nation and the mythology and the nationalist kinds of stories are built upon.
Absolutely. The entire economy is built on that. Michelle Alexander gets at it marvelously and tragically in the new Jim Crow. The numbers of people who were in jails, I'm remembering very well. Every place I've ever lived, everybody knew where you could get weed or other drugs on a black side of town. Rarely have I recalled someone, a patron, who came from the other side of town, somebody racialized as white, being arrested.
Right.
When I was in college, there were several places on the campus where people could get weed, for sure, marijuana, herb. No one ever knocked on a door that I heard of. But wherever Black people are selling drugs, they were able to find them, charge them, and incarcerate them. That now that marijuana is becoming legal,
right,
and being dispensed legally,
right,
many of our racialized white sisters and brothers are building businesses.
Yes.
Other people
right.
People racialized as Black are still in jail over it. So these kinds of disparities just cause just a multitude of not really symptoms, but sources of ill health.
Right. It's not even safe to feel the rage that
absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. The rage will get you killed.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Just give me an excuse. Yeah.
Right. That's right. That's absolutely right. You're out of control, you're ill-tempered. And this will also tragically be at points and at times justified by people racialized as Black. That is to say, if you are enraged, you are angry, and you respond, sometimes those racialized as white have people who are Black who will defend the system against you for having rage, for being angry, for being hurt. And this happens far too often to even think about. I've watched it so many times in the life of the church that people are kept in check. Black people are kept in check, not just by whites, but by Black people.
Okay. Yeah, this is a very complicated, layered system that we're living in, and to dismantle it is it's a lifetime of a calling that is chock full of despair.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I marvel at persons like the Reverend Dr. James Lawson, who's still in the fight at 92 years young. He does not back off, does not back down, loves everybody, but speaks so calmly and prophetically against these systems that rage around racism and impoverishment. And I'm just amazed at how he's, in fact, after talking to you, at some point in the next couple of days, I'm going to try to contact him. Yeah. See if I can just talk some about how he's been able to do that all these years. Yeah, that'd be interesting to hear some of those insights in it, wisdom. It's hard won. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So your insights and wisdom are also hard won. How do you see yourself messaging for your congregation or for Black clergy so that white people like me can overhear and respect and not intrude in upon, but become some kinds of way? I remember, did you ever hear of, what is that guy's name? He was called, he was in Nashville, and he recently died. He was a Baptist preacher and a white man, and he wrote Brother to a Dragonfly. Do you know what I'm talking about? Oh, Will Campbell. Will Campbell, yeah. Yeah. I remember meeting him when I was at Furman in college and spending some time talking to him. And he says, I asked him, I said, what's the difference between a wish and a hope? And he waxed poetically about that for the longest time. But then he ended up telling me, and it was printed up, so this is not just a personal story. He ended up telling me about how he would go and join in with the Black ministers in wherever he was in Mississippi, I think at the time, and up north. And finally, Dr. King, I believe it was, that said to him, why don't you go and hang out with the angry white people and convert their hearts? So then he became the self-appointed chaplain to the KKK. Yeah. Do you remember that, any of that? I remember hearing of it, yes. Yeah. Indeed, I do.
So
Indeed,
in
I
some
do.
ways we are very divided, and it's hard to figure out how to do this sort of intercultural, interracial, interfaith networking where the work is solid and real and respectful, and to dismantle white supremacy. But I mean, how would you speak to that, or what is your messaging around that?
Well, as I think about that, I guess, and thank you for that. That's a really deep, insightful kind of question. As I think about that, I think about what Rosa Parks and Martin King were able to lead, according to Jim Lawson, in terms of this human civil rights movement, spiritual movement. I think they understood before Gary Gunderson and Larry Pray wrote their book on the leading causes of life. You know that book?
I do not.
The leading causes of life. And they call, I want to see if I can recall them: connection, coherence, agency, blessing, and hope.
Okay.
At the point of connection, life happens when people connect in real ways to other people. So there has to be a sense of nobility and respect for a human life. At some point, our people in this nation and the world over have got to understand that the American experiment happened at human cost.
Yeah.
And human beings knew they were causing people not to be human. And not simply at that point, but 2 to 3 centuries prior. Willie James Jennings had a book I looked at a couple of years ago, Theology and the Christian Imagination.
Okay.
And in his book, he takes us through a historical theology of how the church and ecclesiology, how the church found theologians to support and undergird their racism and their disconnection. And these people would make errors from time to time, demonstrating that they knew that the people they were abusing were human. My wife has had me reading a book or audibly listening to it, Cane River. And this novel, it's clear that what Jennings talks about here is true. These people are aware that they're abusing people. And so there's got to come a sense for there to be life among us, that we connect to the noble human in every soul and stop attempting to find ways and spaces and places to make someone less than human. There has to be a real connection, and a challenge to white supremacy racism happens right there at the point of connection.
Yes.
Then the point of coherence. There's got to be a sense that life makes some sense, that there's something foundational that makes life sensible. And if we can connect as humans and work that out, we're going to help people. In the Jewish Museum in Germany, I can get off sometimes.
You go.
I really am coming back to something.
I know you are.
In the German Museum, there's a spot where the architect fixes it so you're walking on what feels like uneven cobblestone that is slanted. And then there are these spires that reach up to the sky, and you never get a sense that you're on solid footing. That's what happened in the concentration camps. Now write the concentration camps and their 12 years, write that over 3 centuries, and you have what Black people live with because of white supremacy here. Never solid footing. So this sense of there being a place that makes sense, where there's some coherence. If white supremacy, racism, and people who are privileged by it can begin to look at that and cut that stuff out, we can make something cohere. We can have something that makes sense, and that's important. Out of that, he talks, Gunderson and Pray talk about agency. I've got the capacity to do some things. I can make some things happen in this life. I don't control anything, but there are some things I can do. I can perform some things. We give people a sense of agency, a sense that you do have gifts, call, skill, you have something in you that can do things. We would remind people that Helen Keller was able to do.
Yeah.
Then we can remind other people that there are things that we can do. Now, all of that could be useless if we have no hope, if we have nothing to aspire to. And this sense that I want to be sure my people have all the time, and anyone around me, I think if I've got any great gift, it's a gift of encouragement. What I'd like for people to know is there is always hope. There is hope to and through your last breath, and even beyond it. There's hope beyond it. Martin King reminds us, he says, I may not get there with you, but we as a people will get to the promised land. He dared to hope beyond. 24 hours later, he'd be dead. He dared to hope beyond his own life. And we've got to help people have a sense of hope. White supremacy does not have to exist. This racist structure does not have to be. There is a hope beyond it. And then finally, that all of that is kissed by something greater than us, that there's blessing, that all of that can be touched and moved and driven by a power and entity greater than ourselves. I choose to call that God. I believe that God is seen best in Jesus, the Christ of Nazareth, and I believe that that Christ of Nazareth sends that out by the power of the Holy Spirit. And I can be touched. We can be touched, blessed to do far greater than we can ask or imagine. That we can dare with John 10 and say greater things than what we do than he did. That all that is possible. And so Gunderson and Pray's book was introduced to me by Bishop Dick Wills. Really speaks, I think, to the heart of what I'd like to have in front of my people all the time. I don't think I've talked to them about this, but well, it's part and parcel of how I see this ministry I work at. Gunderson and Pray have put together something that I think is of great value, simple value, that's easy read, but awfully important. And if I could help white people overhear that, and live into that and believe that, we make for a better nation, a better world.
Yes, sir.
A better world, because this, when I go to the Caribbean, I'm thinking, how did this happen except white supremacy, racism? If I go to Brazil, now how do you get this? And in fact, we were going on, I had forgotten that Spanish people are principally Caucasian. When you get to Mexico, and they blend with the Aztecs and the Mayans and other natives, now here you get this. So you've got this what we call Latin American, Latino, who has a North American look that came to them from these exploiters who came from Spain, who were principally white. So this is worldwide sin.
Yeah.
And if we address that sin structurally, we can change some things. If we dare to listen to Pope Francis, and if we dare to have the courage of a Pope Francis or some of the saints, Martin King, Oscar Romero, or Corrie ten Boom, Rosa Parks, if we dare that, Fannie Lou Hamer, if we dare that, Viola Luiso, if we dare that kind of courage, there'll probably be some casualties, but we could change.
Yeah.
We could change the world.
You just painted a beautiful picture of hope for the human family that is as brilliant as the quilt behind you.
And oh my. Oh my. Oh my, that's so kind. Thank you.
Thank you. You are an incredible leader and deep, rich voice and thinker for our church and our world, really. And so,
oh, thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. Please give Bridgette my love.
I surely will. Thank you for this opportunity. I hope it's helpful. Thank you so very much.
helpful.
I'm honored
Thank
and
you.